Broadcasting from the Washington Hilton in Washington, D.C., Solutions Review is on location at Boomi World 2019. Brought to you by Dell Boomi.
Hey, it's Doug Atkinson here on the expo floor of Boomi World 2019, and I am with a customer of Boomi's, one of their marquee customers, because what you can't see behind the cameras here is we're actually in a candy zone, and our guest is Gary Cifatte, CTO at candy.com. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
You know, there's none left. It's now day 2, and all the candy's gone, and I think you might be onto something with this whole candy thing. I think that it's fairly popular with the attendees.
Yeah, we like to give it to them and build the addiction, and then they come back.
Well, I'll tell you, it's been dropping like nobody's business, so well done.
Thank you very much. You know, it's a great commodity. No matter time of day, time of night, everybody wants it.
Everybody wants to talk to you. So you've been with Boomi since 2015?
Correct. We signed 2015 and went with our first integration went live in 2016.
And you guys are a digital business, as they like to say, as everybody likes to say, right? You're not one of these kind of legacy old school folks. You were built for the internet. And so tell me a little bit about how you're using Boomi right now.
Okay, yeah, we're definitely a tech company. We were 2009 founded, and we really got into the EDI and the B2B business with dropship a few years later. And it's in 2015, like I said, we got Dell Boomi, and we started doing our integrations. We brought it in-house because turn to market, it was really critically important. There's a lot of providers out there that can help you out, but you get into a queue. And EDI changes pretty rapidly, so you may be live, but there may be a tweak. So we had to bring it in-house, and we were great and very fortunate. It was good to get up and running. We turned out 6 integrations very quickly, and we haven't really looked back since.
Well, and you've been growing along with them, and I'm sure you've been using more and more of the platform as it's been evolving?
Correct. The platform, when we learned it, was a phenomenal hammer, and we started banging in every nail that we had, and then we realized that there were some screws and some staples and some other things we needed and some other tools we needed to learn. And the hammer was great, but it wasn't the right tool. And as Boomi slowed us down and said, if you just pay attention, there was better things for us to do to be productive.
Well, so I'm curious about that path, right? So I think a lot of our audience is looking for tips and advice. As you've been implementing and growing your relationship, and now you're certainly a marquee customer. Tell me a little bit about that path. How did you begin, with them? How have you progressed? How are you finding the relationship at the account management level, that sort of thing?
Well, when we started, we actually started long before they had the managed service division. And I think it's because of working with us that they decided to start a managed division, because the managed services was probably easier than dealing with us on a day-to-day doing integrations. But they did the first integration for us, and our EDI person sat with them and learned, and we observed and watched what was happening and tried to pick up best practices. And then the second integration we did with their tutelage and making sure that we were doing it right, and a little bit wrong on our side. We thought we knew everything at that point. You showed us once, we're good, and off we ran. And it was a great thing for us, and it was perfect training to do what we needed. But there were tweaks. There was other things that we could have learned along the way. And every time we reached out to support, to the services, to our integrator, the account managers, everyone was phenomenal. If we ever did run into a problem that was truly a problem, they worked with us. They took ownership of us. Sometimes they pushed us out of the way to break through and give us a solution. And sometimes they very politely let us know that we had gone down the wrong path, and this is really the path we should have followed.
Well, I think it's interesting because we hear a lot of stories about, legacy enterprises kind of coming to things slowly, with a little trepidation, and then we're hearing from a company that's ready to move quickly, that's highly competent internally, and really wants as much control and as much of the power that a Boomi platform offers.
Yeah, we say we don't have control issues. As long as we have all the control, we have no issues.
It's like my wife.
Exactly, but she's not here, so we're not wrong, so it's perfect. But what we really wanted to do was take the ownership of it, because there is opportunity in all business, but it is timely, and you have to be responsive to that. So we wanted to bring it in. We wanted to do stuff. We figured out what we were doing, and it was a great relationship. And it was, with NetSuite, it was perfect. Boomi was already in there, and there were some really powerful tools. But with great power comes also some really tough learning curves.
Well, so I want to talk about that, because I think another interesting perspective that you offer are those lessons learned, right? Sometimes the hard lessons, but lessons that I think people can benefit from. So tell me a little bit about, pieces of advice that you might be able to offer, or some bumps in the road that you learned about through your own experience.
Be glad to. One of the ones, and I think this is really critical to your audience and to people that are working with it, is, as much as anyone tells you that they're 99.9 and they're 24/7, there will be times when systems will not be responsive, and it may just be your data load that you're sending. You may not be scaling it right. We did have problems with performance. That was just the way we had set things up, and both Boomi and NetSuite helped us clear that up. But in the meantime, until we learned that, we were trying to do our own data throttling. We were trying to do our own retry logic. What we didn't realize is that there was inherent retry logic, that if we were to put a call out to NetSuite to do a creation of an order, if it didn't respond in a certain amount of time, we would think that it had failed and we would retry. The problem was that NetSuite was actually creating the order, it's just the response wasn't timely, and we were creating the order twice, which is great for the consumer because they get twice as much, but it's not so good for us for revenue because we can only invoice once. And we thought, well, we could try to throttle it, we could try to do up checks, we could change what's going on with the data, we can do a lot of different things. And finally we were told to, almost like a knock on the head, you realize that you don't need to do a create command all the time. And we're like, well, what do you mean? How else do you do it? Like, have you ever heard the term upsert? It means if it exists, update it. If not, insert it. And it was phenomenal for us because the inherent logic is to retry. So if we were trying to insert an order and for some reason it did create but we didn't get the response, the next try would actually update it. And the update would just say, okay, I've updated it, no one's touched it, and there was no harm, no foul. And if the first create had actually failed, then it said, well, there's nothing to update, so let me try to create it the next time. It reduced our errors by almost 100%. There's very few times that we actually have to go back, unless the service is actually down for a planned maintenance or a release or something along those lines. We've really seldom run into a problem where we have orders not being created, and very seldom, if ever, do we have duplicates coming in.
That's a very nice story. So I'm curious about advice with regard to how people might get started. So not everybody's going to be quite as capable right out of the gate to take advantage of a Boomi as Candy.com. But I'm curious how you would guide somebody who's coming to it. They've obviously solved the integration problems. They have something in place, but they're thinking about going to a next level platform that may be more extensible. What kind of advice would you offer to them to kind of get going?
The first piece of advice I would always give people is that you're under a very tight deadline. You're usually given very little time from management because management says, well, it's already working, you have something. I don't want to give you time to replace what's already in place because there's no ROI on that. There's no value to it. I can't move forward. But the point is, if you don't have time to stop and do it, you really don't have time not to stop. You need to document what your infrastructure is. You have to figure out where the points of pain are and work your way through that. So what we did is we went through and figured out what was working, what wasn't working, where the logical breakpoints were. You could take stuff and very slowly move things along with new integrations and leave old integrations. You could change everything to go to maybe an SFTP folder and then pull everything from there. But you have to figure out for each company because everything's different. For us, we had stuff up and running. We knew, though, that we had a very small window to convert over, and we did. In 36 hours, we moved our first 6 integrations over from one provider, which, our provider called up a day later and said, are there anything or issues we should know about? We're like, no, it's good. And it's like, is your data fine? Like, our data's fine. And they're like, did you break up with us? It's like, it's not you, it's us. So, and again, it is us because we just needed tighter control over our data. We needed to know that we could be responsive because in our industry, after 24 hours is stale, nobody wants to talk to you.
So, with regard to how you're thinking about the next year, but what are you looking at with regard to how you can take more advantage of the technology available? How you might be able to do some more integrations. What are you thinking about?
Well, we're in a really good spot. Last year we changed our infrastructure with both parallel processing and a better platform and the upgraded platform with what NetSuite offered us, and we upgraded. And we're at a point now where we can do over 100,000 transactions in a day without a problem. So we're pretty confident on the EDI side coming in. But what we didn't realize when we first bought the program and the product is that there was a lot of other APIs and functions inside of Boomi that we take advantage of. Some good examples are is we take CSV files from banks that are for remittances, and we'll turn those into a single cash payment, reducing a lot of the manual work that's being done by our finance team. And it just basically, instead of doing a manual error-prone routine of going through and check, we got this invoice, it just matches the data and gives an output. When you give them one import, and at the end of the day, all they have to do is say, post this file.
Neat.
It's great.
Well, while I still have you here, any advice to like legacy folks that are hesitant to be coming to the cloud? I mean, you guys are 100% in, but there's still some hesitancy. What would you say to the folks that are kind of sitting on the sidelines a little bit?
Well, I was telling someone this yesterday. You know, at one point the world was flat. We didn't want to go too far, and then we realized that it wasn't. And at one point we thought we were the center of the universe, and we realized it isn't. It is change. We will always have change. If you're not changing, if you're not growing, you're dying. I mean, someone is going to pass you. So take a moment to realize your gains and what you've done and what your successes are. And as you're clapping yourself on the back, start climbing that next mountain, because there's always another opportunity or challenge out there to prove that you've got it right and somebody wants to work with you.
Excellent. Good advice. Thanks for swinging by.
It was my pleasure.
Thanks for bringing all the candy. It was I ate a lot of it, and well done. And we appreciate your time.
All right, thank you for having me. It was great to have the time to just share a little bit of our experience, and I hope it helps.
It does. Thanks.